Hello, good morning and welcome to Thoughts and Updates. Here we are in a bright and sunny Scotland. I am still at home and haven't taken the option this morning as I am allowed to get out in the car and go somewhere because in the United Kingdom we have different sets of rules for different parts of the United Kingdom as we're coming slowly out of lockdown, and England is going a little faster than we are. We are being much more cautious, as indeed are Wales and Northern Ireland, for a variety of different reasons, I suppose, not least because I think that the approach being taken by the English government is one with which we don't really agree, particularly after the fiasco of the government advisor Dominic Cummings going on his little travels. Now, I don't agree with the people who've turned up at Cummings' house with placards and campaigning against him. I think that's wrong, but I understand their anger. I certainly share it. Anybody who believes that throwing a four-year-old in your car to go on a public highway and cause a menace to everybody else because you're testing your eyesight is somebody that I wouldn't trust alone in a room with a tea cosy, never mind with government policy. But that's where we are now. The Westminster government has responsibility for England, the Welsh government for Wales, the Scottish government for Scotland, and the Northern Ireland Assembly for Northern Ireland. So there's a federal type system in operation. So today it's Granny Beth's birthday, so we have plans afoot to go to Granny Beth's to say happy birthday and follow the social distancing rules that exist in terms of garden visits and going to see our loved ones, which we're going to be allowed to do. But if we permanently want to have our loved ones in our lives, we need to abide by the rules. And speaking as a diabetic, 20% of current infections within Scottish hospitals are diabetics. 1/3 of deaths in England that are related to COVID-19 or the coronavirus are diabetics. So on behalf of people like me, please do us a favour. I'd like to see my wains before long. I haven't seen 2 or 3 of them for a wee while, so going to just do us a favour and just going to do what you have to help. Now, that is rich, I suppose, coming from what we would claim is the world's oldest democracy, the United Kingdom. It's not the world's oldest democracy, the Isle of Man is, but never mind. What we have as we gaze upon and over in America, and I noticed a couple of things that my American editor Brad Berkowitz had put up, because he and Debbie Edwards, his partner, are very, very anti-Trump and angry about the state of America, particularly when it comes to Black Lives Matter, and I couldn't agree with him more. It's appalling. Now, picture the scenes. Here's number one. A large group of heavily armed people, mainly male, mainly of a certain age, 40s and over, storm a town hall, heavily armed, submachine guns as well as other semi-automatic weapons. They arrive in 4x4s and large vehicles, and they storm a place of democracy. The police response respectful. The President of the United States responds equally so, talking about their right to protest, and they're probably very nice people. Such show of anger and arms is treated with a modicum, in fact not a modicum, a huge amount of respect. Then a group of unarmed civilians who are outraged go on a rampage because they believe that lawlessness has come to them. To their ilk, their colour, their people. And their anger is directed at a government and indeed a system which refuses to accept that they have the right to feel protected by it. And unarmed, many of them are. The response, the National Guard on the streets. The response, heavy-handed police tactics, arresting journalists as well as many, many others. The difference? One was protesting because they had been told to stay at home and protect their loved ones and their communities, and they believed this was a restriction of their liberty. The others protested because one of their colour, one of their kind, was murdered by an agent of the state, a policeman, who leant upon his neck until the man was so damaged that he was extinguished. The difference is a black and white difference. Yeah, it is. On the one hand, the white protesters who stormed a number of town halls all over the country were respected because they have the right to bear arms, they have the right to protest, and they have the right in a land of the free to tell their government that they are unhappy. The others are just black people. They don't seem to have the same right. Black Lives Matter. So the next time somebody tells me, that the use of these words and the languages that we use should not be restricted in terms of their liberty, then they need to go out and talk to the people who have lit up, quite literally, the American states in protest at the murder of one of their own. And tell them that the attitudes that these words preach, suggest, are ones that they are comfortable with. Because as a survivor of the Holocaust said recently in a television return to the liberation of Belsen, fascism started with a whisper. It didn't begin with concentration camps. So, I stand in solidarity with those people who were protesting, those people who found the death of an innocent or alleged innocent, or whoever, it doesn't matter whether he was guilty or he was innocent. There are standards of law and standards of justice that must be applied fairly, wholly, and without prejudice. And it was not in this case. And not with the Twitter idiot that is Donald Trump. Once the looting starts, the shooting starts. Well, America, it's not long before the voting starts. And that should be your greatest and biggest weapon against prejudice. And I hope and I trust that there are those who are going to go out there and they're going to do the decent thing. Now, from something that's incredibly important to something that's massively trivial, I have fallen out with a coffee company this week, Skull Crusher Coffee, because they claim that in my search for a decent cup of coffee and a subscription of decent coffee, I currently have a couple, one of which is to Manumit, who take in people who have escaped slavery, give them a job, give them a purpose, and they do decent coffee. And I subscribe once a month, which I think is reasonable. And I found Skull Crusher Coffee, which is all over Facebook like a rash at the moment. And I thought, I'll subscribe to them. They had a little offer. You get a mug, not this one, and you get a filter thing with your first order. And apparently it's really strong coffee, it's really good. So that'll do me. So I had to subscribe to get the offer, so I did. I subscribed. But apparently I subscribed for a weekly subscription. And not only did I subscribe for a weekly subscription, I also asked for a free mug every single week and a free filter every single week. So when 19 quid went out of my account, first of all, I thought nothing of it. About 10 days later, another £19 came out of my account. And when I discovered that they quite reasonably thought that I had actually ticked all these boxes to get a free mug every week ad infinitum, they were aghast that I would want to change my subscription. But I will be. Writing this week has seen me, for Ringside Report, do a little review of Joseph Parker in the middle of finishing off the round stuff that I was doing. Guess which fight it was based on one of the rounds being described. And for Full Stop for Talking Boys, talked about the nearly return. The Dominican Republic almost had a bunch of fights, boxing. This weekend was called off at the 11th hour due to the Dominican Republic government requesting that it was so. And the WBA had a couple of title fights on the line there, not world title but regional titles, so it was quite a significant event. And as it stands at the moment, European boxing is due to come back to Austria 6th of June, and we should see some fighting coming next week. Sport, of course, is returning in England, not quite in Scotland due to the rules as being different, as I was saying earlier. So that is going to be quite a challenge, I think, for the NHS and others in order to cover it. Those volunteers in many places who help out may well be stretched for sporting reasons. Also, Phil Williams was my unsung hero, but also the Swindon advertiser, who do a lot of really good work following boxers, and a little bit of an unsung hero there in terms of local news. No reviewing this week. I've been very busy doing A-level grading for some of the kids who are not sitting exams. They would normally sit exams in an exam centre somewhere in the United Kingdom with AQA, but not just now because of COVID-19. So those kids that I tutor online for ICS Learn Limited needed a grade. So I'm going to be submitting my grades later today, which has been a bit of a faff, a bit of a difference from normal. And my writing this week for Scottish Footballer Supporters Association, I wrote a wee thing which takes Michael Stewart's spat with regards to Rangers spending £5 million and INS Hadji, and wonders where the money's coming from. And I've written a wee bank manager skit on that, suggesting it might have been the equivalent of Wonga. And then Stuart Gilmer, former chairman of St Mirren, has suggested that if Heart of Midlothian Football Club want to sue the SPFL, they have to resign and leave it. Come on, son. If you're a member of something and the group of which you are a member does something wrong, running away and take your arguments with you, because whatever it has been done to you removes your belief in the very thing of which you are a member, is so infantile and childish, I can't even begin. And I hope the Hearts stay, fight from within, and get the change that we all need. But I've got a funny feeling they won't, because I can't see the change being made. Finally, just to finish off, in the midst of all this, a little bit of good news, and a little bit of something which I think is about reparations. In Glasgow, built upon the back of tobacco and slavery, there are reparations being suggested by a number of institutions, particularly the University of Glasgow, being made to those former slaves that we built our empire upon the back of. But hundreds of Irish people during COVID-19 have contributed to an appeal for funds for Native American tribes, which is paying back a debt of gratitude from the 1847 Great Famine. The Choctaw Nation, I hope I pronounced it correctly, who were driven out of their lands in Mississippi, resettled in Oklahoma, raised $170, which is about $5,000, to Dublin to help feed the hungry. And in 2018, the Taoiseach, Leo Varadkar, visited them to thank them in person. And in recent weeks, the people of Ireland have responded to an appeal online on behalf of the Navajo and Hopi families in Utah struggling with chronic lack of access to water. And they have been sending money because over in Native American lands, of course, like black and minority ethnics in the United Kingdom and African Americans in America, COVID-19 has hit our brethren harder than most. So, with that good news, sun is shining, damn, it's off to another day, but a day we can go out in lockdown. Till next week, bye for now.